So now we understand impermanence. Now we understand interdependence. We can understand emptiness. So it's not actually a difficult teaching. So emptiness in Buddhism is not nothingness. It's not the void. Don't confuse it with things from Taoism or things from other traditions. It doesn't mean that nothing exists. And it would be easy to misinterpret this and say, well, nothing we do in this physical world makes any difference because none of it actually exists because of emptiness. And that's not the teaching that's happening here. So it means all things are empty of an inherent, permanent, fixed self-nature, right? This is why we first need to understand interdependence and impermanence, right? So all things are empty of some kind of inherent, permanent nature because everything is arising from causes and conditions. Causes and conditions are constantly changing. What can we grab onto and say this is a permanent self-nature? So we can't point to something and say, you know, this is the essence of this thing and it will always be like this. So we have to understand it's empty of something. Emptiness is not just a thing. What we're talking about is we're characterizing conditioned things as they don't have any fixed permanent self-nature. So it also means whatever idea, label, judgment, you know, we attach to something is also in a certain kind of way meaningless on an absolute level because this, whatever it is changing all the time. It's empty of any fixed identity. As soon as I decide I like this, I don't like this, I give it a name, I write a story about it, and of course that's always about what does it mean for me. In the next moment that thing has changed. So the label that I've given it, the story that I've written about it, my understanding of it also needs to change. So I can't grab onto it. It's empty of anything I can grab onto. So emptiness doesn't mean things and people don't exist. Again, it's not the void. It means that because things are deeply impermanent, there's nothing about them that we can hold on to. So we can't really describe emptiness. It's one of those sort of ineffable things because words are limited. So if we describe something and we say, well, emptiness is like this, then it means there's something else which is not emptiness. We can't really draw a box around emptiness and say, this is what emptiness is. Emptiness is like this, has these characteristics, you know, functions like this. Because then there's something that is not that. And that's not the way reality works. So provisionally, again, we can talk about emptiness, but the reality of it is there's no way we make that boundary or make that separation. So emptiness is sometimes called thusness, sometimes called suchness. You might run into teachings about it in that way. Simply the way things are. Emptiness is simply the way things are. It's reality before we start poking our heads in and coming up with concepts and delusions and carving it up and making separation and covering it up with our fabrications, as Uchiyama Roshi would say, right? Our worldviews, our opinions. So provisionally, we often make a pair out of form and emptiness. There's form and there's emptiness, and somehow these are two different things. So provisionally, we can talk about that, but again, not actually separate. So we usually talk about form as the concrete manifestation of something that we encounter. This thing has a form, or this thing is a form, right? I can drink out of it, I can hold it, it has a color, right? There's some kind of material, some kind of body, something that's there. It has characteristics. You know, I can call it, this is my cup. If I'm using it to hold the door open, it's a doorstop, right? It doesn't matter. But we can give it that sort of, we can give it a name. We can draw boundaries around it. I can say this is a cup, but this is a book. In the world of form, that makes sense. I can make some distinction or some division. So provisionally, I can say, well, a shovel is not the same thing as a broom, and I need a broom to sweep the zendo, so I'm going to make a choice, or I'm going to make a distinction and use something in a certain way. So emptiness, that's form, right? Then there's emptiness. So emptiness is the reality that the shovel and the broom and really this one as the user of whatever that thing is are just piles of skandhas in this moment, right? There's just piles of elements, piles of skandhas. They're all impermanent. The only reason a broom is called a broom is because this self, right, wants to use that collection of skandhas in a particular way. So just like if this is, I'm drinking out of this, it's a cup, but if I use it as a doorstop, it's a doorstop, right? So there's no absolute about that. There's no sort of intrinsic thing about that. So the reality is that whatever it is that we're encountering does not have a name, does not have a use. It just is what it is. And in our study this year of Nyoho, one of the things we're learning about is thusness, right? So tangible thusness, right? This thing in itself doesn't have a name, doesn't have a use. That's about my relationship to it. It's empty of any of that. I'm adding that into the relationship. So some causes and conditions resulted in something taking on a certain form in the here and now, but it's this thing, whatever it is also a complete manifestation of emptiness. It's all just the universe functioning, the way the universe functions. So as bodhisattvas, we need to live in both of these realities at the same time. And if we don't, if we fall down on one side or the other side, we really go off the rails, right? We really start to create some trouble. If we live only in the world of form, then we forget about interconnectedness. We forget about the true nature of self. We think what we do doesn't matter. Nobody else will be affected by what I do, therefore I can move through the world in whatever way I want to, satisfying my greed, anger, and ignorance. I sort of forget about that. We make mistakes. We fall into the three poisons. We create suffering for ourselves. We perpetuate that suffering on other beings. We can't ignore the realities that we can't easily see or that we don't yet understand. And we sometimes want to do that in the world of form. I'm going to deal with what's in front of me. Forget about the fact that there were causes and conditions and that maybe those things started 100 years ago or across the world or something. I'm just going to work on this. So, on the other hand, we can't live only in the world of emptiness. And it can be tempting to do that. And we call it spiritual bypassing, right? We need to move skillfully through the world. We need to make important distinctions. I sometimes use examples like we need to know the difference between a red light and a green one, or we're going to have trouble. We need to know the difference between candy and poison, or candy and medicine, because we're going to have trouble. We need to make distinctions. But if we decide, oh, well, everything is empty, everything's impermanent, doesn't matter what I do, we've gone off the rails because, yes, in the world of emptiness, there is no stealing because there's no thief and there's no victim and there's nothing to steal because there's no distinction and separation and all that stuff. And yet, what happens? If you steal somebody's car, suffering happens. It's not okay. It doesn't absolve us from the need to keep precepts, right? And if we bypass that and we live up here, we have a problem. Historically, that's created real trouble in the Buddhist world, because it's been easy to say, oh, well, in the world of emptiness, these people who are suffering, we don't need to help them, or they're suffering because of their own bad karma, and that's their problem, and so we're just going to move through the world and not deal with that. So we need to be careful about spiritual bypassing and sort of living up here, right? We still need to deal with the reality that we have bodies and minds. We're interconnected with other beings. Things we do make a difference. Right? So we have responsibility for both of those kind of realities.